Hi, Susanne Frandsen.
Hi, Sophie.
And welcome to the New World Lead.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. We just met the other day at the President's Summit, Northern Europe's leading business conference with more than 4,500 leaders gathered.
Yes, it was a big bang.
It was a big thing. And the theme was building the future.
Yeah. Yes.
And well, the two of us go way back. We know each other, have known each other for many years, and but it was such a pleasure connecting again.
Yes, indeed it was.
And
I've been on parallel, life paths. Yeah, ever since.
yes, and then meeting up again. You are a transformational coach, an author, and a speaker. And you are catalyzing change in individuals and organizations.
Yes.
You've written an amazing book, The Director's Manual for CEOs, in Danish.
Yes.
And you're also the co-author of a children's book,
Yes.
which is coming out in English soon, Sia and the Magic Stone.
Yes.
And then you call yourself a heaven on earth ambassador. Mm-hmm. And that really caught my attention because the focus with my project, The New World Lead, is the creation of the world we love to live in. So I ask people I meet, how do we do that? How do we create the world we love to live in? So that is the reason I invited you. And I think we should start there and then like roll it out, because it was also very interesting in this President's Summit, the focus on emotional intelligence, and we started talking about the power of emotions, and I think actually the headline for this conversation will be the power of emotions, because that is what you are writing about in your books, for both leaders and CEOs, and now also for children and their parents. But let's start hearing your take on how we create the world we'd love to live in.
Well, it's a big one, isn't it? I met Martin Roth, who founded the project Heaven on Earth, in a group called Transformational Leaders in Nice. I think it was back in 15, 16-ish. And his message resonated so deep with me. It was a full body yes to become his ambassador of Heaven on Earth in Denmark, to kind of inspire and advocate how can we go there. And oftentimes when Martin, he asks people, so how can you create heaven on earth? He gets answers which are very, outer motivated, from the outside, things we can do on the outside to make this world a better place. And my focal point is more, how can we create heaven on earth within us? Yeah. Because if we create it there, we will naturally see it out there as well, because we will become a frequency matched to heaven on earth outside. And maybe you can do it the other way around as well, but what resonates with me more deeply is to really go within. So that is what I help people with, whatever age and whatever occupation they're doing, is to go within and to really master your emotions and your mind, and see how can I create the world that I long to be in, how can I create my heaven on earth, and how can I share my unique superpower with this world. Because doing that, we fell into alignment, heart-brain coherence. And once we do that, we have full access to our manifesting power and full access to our brain as well. So actually, it's a good plan to follow your heart because it will activate all of your brain. That's usually an argument that leaders will listen to. So,
but it takes quite a high level of consciousness, understanding what you're saying, like the quantum physical fact that we are actually creating the world inside out, and that as you write in Sia and the Magic Stone, the universe is a photocopier of what is going on within you. Let's dive a little into that.
So a good place to start is to realize or acknowledge that everything is energy. So both your thinking, your thoughts emanate at a frequency and energy, and so does your emotions. And your emotions can actually be measured on a megahertz scale, the Hawking scale it's called. And I have it in my book for adults where the frequencies have been mentioned, but we also did it, and maybe that's more illustrative and beautiful to the eyes to see here that every emotion can be described by a animal in this case. So actually shame vibrates at 20 megahertz. And most of us have tried to be caught up in shame, right? And it feels very heavy, and we are governed from fear. So we can move up to to guilt. This vibrates with 30 megahertz, also a slow emotion. And when I'm down here, I'm also governed by fear. We can move up to anger. And the anger is vibrating at 150. So it's a faster energy, which you can also see if people get angry, it's a faster energy. You feel it more. Acceptance lies around 300 megahertz. Happiness or love vibrates at 500, happiness at 540, meaning 600, and a place between 700 and 1000 you find gratitude. So when we're at the higher emotions, we feel a lightness in our body, and we're governed by trust, faith that everything will turn out right, that life happens for me, not to me. So it is for us to understand, so where did I make knots on my inner garden hose of emotions? Because if you have knots on your emotional ladder, you will not create flow, you will create stagnation and resistance. So we have to dive deep into, so what is it that I'm carrying in my backpack of trauma?
What you're saying is that all the thought patterns and the emotional patterns we have actually are significant for our personal frequency, and that is emitting to the matrix around us.
Yes.
What we are.
I usually say that the thought is like, the hunter pointing at a deer that he wants to shoot, right? That's a thought. That's a focal point. Whereas the emotional frequency is the one that draws it into your reality. So they go hand in hand. And in order for us, we might be able to identify, so I want to go there. I want to go to Hawaii, instead of Copenhagen or something, a nice place, right? I want to go there. But if I inside me have, for example, a thought program that says, so my needs are not, going to be met. They're not important. My needs are not important. So my need is to go to Hawaii, but within me, I have a thinking or a feeling state that my needs are not important. In which case I cannot draw it into my reality. So I have to go deep within that backpack of trauma to find out, so where did you first decide that your needs were not important, and untie that part of you so that you can become a frequency match to that reality that you so long for. So that's kind of like being, you know, investigating. So what is my inner landscape, body, mind, soul? What is my cellular memory carrying around that makes me not yet a vibrational match to whatever I want to experience in this life?
So if we experience living in a world we actually don't love living in,
Yeah.
it is because we are on an unconscious level vibrating on a low frequency that is then creating experiences of maybe shame or guilt or anger or fear.
Yeah, we get triggered by something, and that triggering is a signpost that there is something buried within me that I need to look at. So that is, you know, it's actually a good thing getting triggered, because we can't really open up to everything and see, so where's the red wiring that makes all the trouble. So we can just look at our physical experience and see, so how's it going there? What am I attracting?
So this is a little more advanced conversation that we than the one we were witnessing at the President Summit, because what was interesting was that it was actually a focus on emotional intelligence, but being explained within a more traditional way of seeing the world.
Yeah, and to me, you know, I think they're thinking about, so who is coming here, who's attending this event, how can we sort of speak their language, and so many of these people has been raised in an environment where it's performance driven, right? So you have key performance indicators, and you need to go there. So if you have a guy on the stage telling people, so guys, you know what, if you don't have a high EQ, a high emotional intelligence quotient, what you will experience in your outer world is a decrease at 390% less turnover in your companies.
Yeah, he actually said that from a study done by Daniel Coleman.
Sorry for the dog.
Okay. But the father of the concept emotional intelligence have conducted several analyses.
Yeah, Daniel Coleman has done a lot of research, and this guy was sharing the numbers, and I think that's a burning platform. If that's not something you understand as a leader, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
And the number one, he spoke about 12 cornerstones in being a high EQ and high successful leader. And number one on this list was your self-awareness, your level of self-awareness. Because oftentimes these leaders do 360 degrees, you know, evaluation of these leaders. And so many times people will get surprised by the feedback they get from their employees, right? You know, they will describe themselves differently than the employees. So in order for us to move into this next level, this heaven on earth version of how can you be a leader, how can you be a human being, it's very important to practice your level of reflecting back upon yourself, and to release all these stuck emotions that people have. We all have them, right?
Yeah, we are all walking around. Is that your
Sorry.
dog? Is that your dog in the background?
It's because my ex-husband is right now picked up from the kids, and she would much rather say hi than be in here.
Okay.
A little puppy, yeah.
So what you're saying is we are all carrying stuck emotions in our physical body.
Yeah.
All the emotions we have not been willing to feel, to witness, that we have repressed in our system.
Yeah.
And that is actually creating our experiences
Yes.
in the outer world.
And that's why it's so important, and I do it all the times when I do sessions, it's so important to get down into the physical level, to release the trauma on a cellular level, because we can only do so much mental work up here. We really do have to take the next level and go down into your body. But so many of us, you know, we use our bodies as a way of transporting our head. You know, that's how much contact some people have with their body, right? So it's just it's a wheel of transportation, but we really have to dig deeper, because it's our wisdom and our trauma that lies in the body. So I was very happy to see that this, you know, EQ is now being mentioned at this big conference with 4,500 leaders sitting there and staying in the seat, you know, being interested. And I had a conversation with a guy afterwards, I know from my corporate life, and he's at 5 different boards. And what he was sharing was that these days, people are actually getting fired if they are not willing and able to level up their EQ. And that's a new next level in my experience. That's not how it was when I was sitting in the board of this company where we met initially. So now it's at the forefront of people's agenda, you know. People know this is important now.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, I've been out of corporate. I was surprised in a good way to re-enter into this this space, to see that maybe we are further ahead than I had initially thought.
At least a lot has changed these past 10, 15 years.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote this book back in 13, so it's 10 years ago, and that's usually what I say to people is I'm approximately 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see I was right.
Yeah, you are, and you're very precise and detailed also in your approach, in comparison to, for instance, the more traditional way of talking about emotional intelligence.
Yeah, yeah. And I do it this way because I experience that when people understand things and you bridge to science, you know, spiritually based leadership, they call it in the States, but we are not yet here in Denmark. You know, if you call your leadership style that, most people would still be kind of like, say what? You know, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And I don't care what we call it.
Oh. But there's also, I mean, you can say a jump from pointing out the power of emotions and then going all the way to saying it is actually our emotions that create the world we live in.
And that's the next level that we didn't hear on this conference, but maybe we can be on stage next year.
I was thinking that it was very interesting. I read your the children's book, Sia and the Magic Stone.
Yes.
And I think it's the best children's book I've ever read. And I was amazed how you how you managed to convey this very profound spiritual message in such a easy to access way.
We had a really high level of ambition with this book. You know, and it was tricky to try and paint the big picture in one book. But I think we did it successfully, so that people understand the basics, and we actually do succeed in making this bridge between the spiritual and the science-based approach to, you know, quantum physics and epigenetics and learning about the heart and the mind, how it affects our ability to create this world that we're longing for. And what I was noticing also on this conference was Susie Welch, when she talked about the young people she was teaching at university, that instead of calling it unemployment, they now call it fun employment. Right? So there's just, you know, people are getting down in their hearts and connecting with, so what is this life going to be? You know, is it only being trying to, you know, pacing after these high ambitious leaders that tell me to do this and that, or should I have myself along the journey? Should I be witnessing this with my heart and soul and being very pleased? You know, is it nurturing? Am I following my full body yeses and honoring my full body no's? And that is what high EQ leaders will manage in the future, is to navigate this path where they cannot do things the way they used to do. It's simply not going to work.
Yeah, it has, and it was so wonderful to see it as a need to next development stage, instead of something nice to that people do in their spare time.
Yeah, it's to me, I compare it to once we talked about corporate social responsibility, and people were kind of like, nah, that was not a need to, that was a nice to. And I see this as, you know, moving along the same path of once being nice to and now being need to. And now we have the research to back it up. And that's what I find interesting.
But it's a challenging journey that all these leaders are facing now.
Yes.
Because we have to go through all the pain stored in our body, all the stuck emotions. And those emotions, as you said, the emotions we call shame or guilt, they are actually about being wrong. In some, like, shame is about being wrong as I am, whereas guilt is that I'm doing something wrong.
Yes.
And all of that is extremely painful to realize and go through, because you cannot release the emotions from the body unless you're willing to feel them and go through this more or less therapeutic process.
Yes. Yes, it is going to be a breakdown before a breakthrough. And I think that, you know, you and I and people who's been walking this path for so many years have kind of like created a space where this birth can be done in a more quickly manner than you and I had to do, because there's now a critical mass of consciousness that will make this process quicker, but we cannot, you know, we cannot skip it. We need to go there, but it can be a fast process because the space has already been created. the vortex of this next generation leadership has been made already. But it will be interesting. It's about reinventing everything in my perspective, because what you're talking about, the shame, and it is related to the thought pattern that I'm not good enough. And I'm not good enough relates to our relationship with our Father. It is our Father's task to see every part of you and say it's okay. So every expression of you is okay. So if your father doesn't do this in a successful manner, you will shut down a part of you and put it aside and not going there anymore, because what it created was rejection. And the emotional trauma will be around shame, and the feeling you will have is a feeling of being empty. And the emptiness is because there's a part of you that's not here, so you don't feel whole. So the process we're in right now is about becoming whole and going back to who we really are, because we cannot create this world unless all of us are who we really are. And once we go there, we need to let go of the thinking that we are in competition with each other. We are not. That's an illusion. Competition is not real. But we really need to understand this on a cellular level before we fall into place and before we can share our unique contribution and just be who we are and feel good about it.
You know, I actually thought that the mother wound was connected to the shame, and then the father wound was connected to the guilt, that the mother archetype was connected to the being, and the father to the doing. But I guess maybe it doesn't maybe it doesn't matter, but
it is shame that is related to father as well. Let me see. I think actually guilt is on the mother's side, because your mother's the mother wound is about, you know, am I lovable as I am, and are my needs important?
Yeah.
So if I have a need that my mother doesn't recognize and value, I feel guilty about having it.
Oh, I feel shame for existing.
But either way, we have a lot of shame and a lot of guilt going on in our systems, to the extent that we haven't faced it yet.
I am so, yeah, I have been surprised at some, I mean, I've been on this journey exploring all this since my awakening in 2006. Yeah. And when I quit my job in the Defense Command in Denmark, which was a very, a place, it was not an emotional place, let's just put it like that. I went on this inner transformational journey to really discovering, who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of me? Yeah. And I went through so much trauma release, and yeah. For many years I thought, oh, I'm in this process and it will have an end at some point. Suddenly, fast forward like more than 10 years, realizing, okay, there are still pockets of shame and guilt in my body, and all kinds of other repressed emotions. And this is actually, even though we've done the work, it is the work is never done. We are never complete.
No. Well, there's no reason to be around if we're complete, is there? So I guess but the difference is whether you perceive yourself as being a victim of life, or that you have realized that I am the creator of life. That's totally different to suddenly get into contact with a part of you that feels like a victim, but that you don't, you know, follow the urge of exporting that drama that you carry within you. So that's a tipping point.
That is actually the most important point, right? Going back to my initial question, how do we create the world we love to live in?
Yeah.
It is actually realizing that we are not victims of the world or of life or of anything or anybody. We are actually the creators. And we are creating some things consciously and a lot of things unconsciously on the basis of all the emotional trauma stored in our body. And I guess we can also talk about karma and
But
previous.
we can always check in by watching the reality to see. So that's a constant feedback system, right? So what am I creating? What am I experiencing? What is triggering me? So you might be witness to something that is not heaven on earth, but if you don't get triggered, you don't need to go into it. So just, you know, follow the path of least resistance and most joy is the clear road for heaven on earth. To just keep doing that, keep doing that, keep doing that. But we've been so programmed with no pain, no gain, right? And once you say A, you have to say B. And you don't want to jump the fence where it's lowest, right? There's so much fighting energy, high performance energy, right? And this energy will not get us there. So we need to release all these programs, and we have to make a Control-Alt-Delete to those to just let them go and reinvent something else.
It takes a lot of courage, Susanne.
Yes, it does.
It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a room for vulnerability to be okay.
Yes.
It takes also the ability to create a safe space for each other to process this.
Yes.
To go through the stored pain and to emerge on the other side and not being judged for all this.
And we are just, you know, we're human beings, and most people are still governed by I'm being away from motivated, right? Instead of going to motivated. So since this is still the reality for most people, you really have to go deep within a pain pocket to get the motivation, or to persuade your ego mind to let go of the programming, because you have to actually reach a point where the ego thinks, I'm either gonna die, be fired, lose my partner, get sick, whatever, you know, to find the motivation to really do something about. Because most of us, we do know what we carry around. We just haven't been motivated to look into it.
We don't want to
so
go.
Pain is a driver.
And we are running away from the pain instead of stopping, turning around and facing it.
Yes. We're suppressing pain in so many ways by working too much, smoking too much, eating too much, doing too much exercise, you know, too much sex, too much gambling. All these things are really just meant for us to cover up emotions we are suppressing, right? And it's kind of like, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. Fortunately, it doesn't work anymore. So much so that now at this summit, we just attended to, that emotional intelligence is on the agenda. So it's welcome. It's being welcomed. It hasn't been welcomed in this way ever before, but now it's welcomed.
Yeah.
And this guy I was talking about earlier, I asked him, so do you help these leaders that don't excel at high EQ? And he said, yes, that gets loads of help. It's only when they haven't successfully done so within a period of time, and they don't really show the willingness to go there, that we have to say goodbye. So there is help, and I guess you and I both are going to help these people as well, right? To build this bridge and to hold the space. If you can find a space holder that can hold this space of the new era, you will get there so much faster and without all the bruises. You can actually take quantum leaps. You and I both know that that's real.
Yeah,
Right.
there is actually a shortcut. Now, as I said before, it's a never-ending journey, maybe, because we do carry also ancestral trauma, which is not even ours personally. So once you get into the healing process, there is lots to heal. I think the important thing is to not drown in the process, and to keep the focus. Why are we doing this? And taking one step at a time.
And team up with people who has been walking the path, right? Instead of just trying to do this yourself.
Yeah, it is a very long journey doing it yourself.
Yes.
And it might be,
and you only do it yourself if your soul has set up yourself to be the author of how do we go there, right? So that's the teacher living the teaching and then describing it.
Are you planning on translating your book into English, the one for the CEOs and leaders as well?
Yes, I would love to do that someday. It just, it takes quite a while to. I must be honest and say I haven't read this book since 13.
You haven't read it?
I haven't read it since it was printed. You get to the point of vomiting when you have read your own words so many times. So there is a thing within me saying, it's a closed chapter, right? I have come, but maybe there will be a pull effect on translating it. So I will get someone to do it.
Maybe there will, or maybe there will be a new edition with all the wisdom you have gained on the journey since writing the book. I guess it would be
definitely
amazing to read about all your discoveries. I was thinking, talking about emotional intelligence, talking about the pain stored in our bodies, all the emotions we didn't want to feel. I think it would also be interesting to talk about emotional abuse.
Yes. Yes, and we all have been abused at some level, and we're also being abused at the structural level. And we can speak about this both in a society way, in an organizational way, in our partnerships, and to the relationship with ourselves. Right. And I just find it interesting to start from within, because it will be just pointing fingers at what's going on the outside. And I think you and I both use the drama triangle to describe this dynamic, because it gets so clear to us where we go wrong, and how we, align ourselves and get this wanted heart-brain coherence within us, so that we can gain clarity on, so what is my next best step, and that I know it beyond doubt. I can feel my full body yeses, I can feel my full body no's in the now moment. So I don't have to go on the wrong path for like many years, speaking of 3 divorces myself and so many other things, right? So yeah, be the teacher living with teaching. So this dynamic, I think, in me didn't fall into place in a big way before this Corona circus was unfolding, where I really could see all the levels of this dynamic, and how we are not victims, and we need to stop wasting our energy on telling that story, and instead just be the creators of the future that we long for. Yeah. Should we draw the drama triangle? Do you think that would be?
I think it could be interesting talking about the drama triangle. Yeah, if you can draw it, that would be cool. And let's talk about it with the perspectives on emotional intelligence, and emotional abuse, and how, and also please make examples from your own life, or of how you saw the Corona, the pandemic response within this drama triangle.
Yeah,
That
that's a big one.
That's a big one. Yeah.
So the drama triangle can describe and explain the dynamics in every relationship, both outside of us and inside of us. So over here or down here, we can start with the victim, since we're talking about the victim. Many people call the victim, but I also like to call it the self-violator, because that's a more powerful notion.
Yeah, so that is actually emotional abuse done to yourself.
Yes, or, me staying in something that I don't have a full body yes on. I'm just going to try and see if I can move this screen a little bit further here. So down here we have the victim. Over here we have the savior. People in our line of business, we have this trait, right? And over here you have the violator or the persecutor.
Yeah, we have a lot of people wanting to save the world.
Yes.
And that is actually dysfunctional.
It is.
According to this way of thinking.
Let's say this is responsibility. This pen is responsibility. And I'm going to throw it to you and you catch it, right? So now you hold my responsibility. Then what should I do but become someone who is not responsible? So that's a good example of the savior way of being in this world, is to take on a lot of responsibility, trying to save everything, trying to fix everything, right? Yeah. So
carrying the world on your shoulders, taking too much responsibility.
Yeah, and not only being empathic, but actually be suffering with people. Like it was your suffering, right? Carrying around the world's suffering in your system. So that is a good trait over here. Run responsibility. Yeah. So what we're talking about is self-mastery at a high level. That is the wanted outcome of this process we're all in. And I usually picture it as being the king or the queen in the center of this triangle. Because what is said about this way of being is that I am in the big zero. We talk about the 0 point field within quantum physics, and that is where your heart brain coherent, and you can pre-sense what's calling for me from the future, and you are at peace with everything. You're not arguing with reality, because when we do that, we fail 100% of the times. And we know that life is happening for us, not to us. So we are no longer victimizing ourselves. So that is the place we want to be. So in order for us to have a kingdom or a queendom, we also have some subordinates. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun to be the queen or the king. And I picture those as in this way. So these are parts of us, versions of us, our personalities within us that speaks up here and there, right? So, for example, if you are over here and you take on too much responsibility, that would be one of your subordinates in your queendom, right? Maybe then you feel victimized, poor me, another place in you, right? Maybe you feel the need to control others, and thereby maybe sometimes become a little bit manipulative when it comes to other people. That is a trait of the violator, right? Because I'm stepping into other people's gardens here. So in order for this queen or king to become, the master, you need to take these parts of you into consideration in your inner dialogue and really being the loving parent in the now, asking these parts of you, so what do you need? Tell me more about it. How do you feel? How can I be the best queen or king for you to accommodate all your needs, right? So this is inner dialogue. That is not me asking you to fix me or to give me what I need. That's an inner job, right? So if we practice this, we will over time create more and more peace in our queendom or kingdom. And coming from this place, I can walk out in the world and I can become a frequency match to a world with peace and calmness, and where you do what you excel at. You're in your bliss zone, right? Everything is in flow. We're stepping into timelessness, no hurry, just one big flow, right? Following the path of least resistance and most joy. Now, to add the quantum physics level that we started out with, where we said that we are the creator of our own reality, you can symbolize the dynamic from a quantum perspective by seeing that if I take on too much responsibility, that would be a +1 position in the quantum field. Now, since the quantum field always seeks the 0-point field, right? So everything has to become 0. +1 does not equal 0. So I'm a magnet to a -1 who does not take upon their responsibility, right? So I will meet so many people that do not take upon their personal responsibility if I insist on taking on too much, right? So the queen has to take this side into this inner dialogue and asking, so honey, I can see that your first thought was to just catch this responsibility carried by this one down here. I can understand why you want to do this, because you've done this so many times. You did it almost since you were born. You excel at it. You're really, really good at it. Thank you for being willing to carry all this responsibility on your shoulders. And Han, have you ever felt like going out playing on the field and just maybe take a break? Did it ever occur to you that might be nice? And this side was, oh yes, oh yes. And the queen could reply, you know what, you can do so. Next time responsibility is thrown through the room, you here have the permission from the queen to sit on your hands. You can sit on your hands, right? And maybe you don't succeed first time or second time or time number 50, right? But you become more and more aware of the dynamic. So you can create more and more of what you do want, right?
Have you ever heard of the empowerment dynamic?
No, not as but I can guess
called,
that it has to do with something around.
yeah, it's actually I think it's also being called the freedom triangle.
Yes.
Instead of the drama triangle. So
Yes.
it's a concept. I don't remember right now who created it. They have written a book called The Power of TED, the empowerment dynamic, where they replace the victim with the creator.
Yes.
And then they replace the persecutor with a challenger. And then they replace the savior or the rescuer with the coach. And then the whole point is that we create we create our own reality. We go through the different levels of consciousness and realize, okay, I'm actually creating, there is a flow through me or as me. Is like going all the way to the highest understanding of us being one with the supreme creator, so to speak. And then the people we meet in life, they challenge from a position of, okay, I know you can do it, but are you sure that is really what you want to do? Just like supporting in that way. And then on the other side, the coach saying, you can do it, you can do it. What are the next 3 steps or something like that? So everyone.
And it's a good point, because what I oftentimes experience is that once you get closer to this, you will get challenged, and you can sometimes feel that people really want to make you codependent on their pattern.
Yeah.
Right. So this, this new triangle is explaining that, no, I'm not going to be codependent, but I am going to mirror back what you are doing right now, right?
And that is super interesting, because then we go into that. It's like changing the game.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like you and I also previously have had conversations about this trap of being an empath and being codependent and meeting people having narcissistic traits, emotionally abusing you without you really acknowledging it, because it's like so subtle.
Yeah.
But it's like when we step into this empowerment dynamic and understanding on a deeper level that the roles could be transformed, it becomes really clear.
And that is the fast track, to heaven on earth, is to realize that this is what is going on, because you cannot ever claim to be the victim. So the victim gives away its creational power, right? So once you realize, nope, I'm not a victim, you can own your power, and you can actually go where you want to go, and it can move very fast. Energy loves speed, right? So if you really decide, sometimes when I spot a subordinate in my queendom and I realize, no, this is below my standard, things can shift, I kid you not, in a second. And suddenly I become a vibrational match to the solution to the problem I had a minute ago. It ticks into my mailbox or my messenger thread or something, and it's just so, it's like the universe is having a big laugh, Oh, now you get it. Now you get it. Okay.
That is what I loved about meeting you again. Like this feeling of, wow, we can do this very quickly. We can transform these things, these deep-seated trauma patterns that have had us victimized for decades, and that we've been so afraid of. We've been so afraid of them that we wouldn't want to go into it, looking at it, and then suddenly realizing, wow, this is why I keep creating these circumstances in my life. You cannot separate the creation from the creator, as well as you cannot separate the dancing from the dancer, or the art from the art. You can't separate the things. No. And when we realize that on a deep level, we also get this humility, this humbleness, this also gratitude for all the people who crossed our paths and were playing either the victim or the persecutor or the savior, in order for us to understand how we were giving away our creational power. And now it's so easy to take it back.
Yes.
When we have the right tools, the right safe space created around us. And for that, I want to thank you very much for the way what you opened my eyes for. It's always, I think all of us have blind spots, and it's so easy to see others' blind spots and open the door when we are willing to step in and support each other from this open heart and from this place of really wanting to not save anyone, not rescue anyone.
Example of leaving the own drama triangle and going to the freedom triangle, right? Once you take your ownership on whatever victim vibe you might be carrying around, you can actually just move through it. If you find someone who is willing to be the mirror and just hold the space without being triggered, and without being the codependent that you might be calling for, no, I'm not going to do that. Just play it out, give it, take it away.
And I think it is transformational coaches like you and I and so many others. We have walked a long path of self-healing. We are so humble and open to transformation ourselves, and are willing to really, and
everyone in our line of business, but many people are. I mean, you see people making a spiritual bypass now and then.
Let's talk about that, because I was also thinking, being so willing to look at your own patterns, being so willing to take responsibility for whatever happens around you, also can have, if you're not really aware, it can attract people not so conscious and willing to look at their own stuff. And we were talking about that earlier, an experience you had as a transformational teacher, but also in your private life of attracting people with these narcissistic tendencies, that when people not open to looking at their own patterns, and then becoming codependent, actually, unconsciously.
Yes, that was very educative experiences to experience it in actually many aspects. I've experienced it at an organizational level back in my corporate days. I've experienced it in a network of like-minded and like-hearted people, and I've experienced it on a personal level with a partner I was with, and having to take the power back to myself I realized that there had been a part of me that had been suppressed, so much so that I wouldn't always react timely on that feeling of a full body no. So I would be prone to, if that person was very good at articulating their reality and the way they saw it, I would be prone to believe what they said. It wouldn't have to be backed up by action, right?
I understand.
So what I was taught in these experiences was that I can trust my intuition 110%. And it does not always make sense in the now moment, my reaction, because I wouldn't really be able to pinpoint what is it that is going on right now that brings up this full body no. But I have to trust it. No matter which words are being used, I have to trust the feeling. And that is why the EQ is so important. Because in order for us to be able to feel that in the here and now moment, we have to be untying all the knots that the subordinates are carrying around. Otherwise, we might be caught up in, that makes sense what he says. And then you get back home and you realize, hell no, it didn't make sense at all. And why was he abusive to that person? Just standing there talking about how we're going to be a transformational leader and then doing the exact opposite. Why did you not react in the here and now moment, right? I was one of those reacting, I'm getting wiser as we go along, right?
But I also think it's part of a cultural programming. Let's not be so hard on ourselves, like individually and personally. I mean, like it is part of a cultural programming, and maybe also part of a programming of being women. Also, like the difference between being a man and a woman in the culture we grew up in, and I think.
We're so used to being pleasing, pleasing others. Yeah.
Exactly. And that speaks right into the shame and the guilt of not being good enough, of not doing it good enough, what we call the imposter syndrome. If you suffer from that, you could end up being a pleaser, and then you're not reacting to your full body no's or yeses for that sake. You are outer controlled instead of inner guided. And and all of this speaks into this beautiful concept of sovereignty. Becoming sovereign.
The queen and the king are sovereign.
Yeah.
Right. They are inner guided.
But it's just so funny for me. I have a master's in political science and international relations, and the concept sovereignty is used to describe the different states and what does it take to be a sovereign state, and what are the guidelines for the interactions between sovereign states. And when it dawned on me, oh my God, this perspective makes so much sense on an individual level in the new paradigm, because we all need to become sovereign. And when we become sovereign, all of us, we can co-create, really co-create the world we all love to live in from the inside out.
Yes.
Is it
how hard can it be? We just explained how to.
Exactly. So let's get going, everybody. 7 billion people in the world. It's a process.
It is a process, and we should also learn to enjoy the process, because it is really joyful. I mean, this universe is hilarious in its way. It can set us up to reach new realizations about ourselves and about this world that we are living in. So, Netflix, go home. Just watch reality fold out.
Reality is so much more entertaining.
Reality TV. Yeah.
Exactly.
The real reality TV.
Yeah. So the purpose of life is to become the sovereign queen or king of your own kingdom.
Yeah.
And the way we create the world we love to live in is to focus on what we love and know that we have the creational power to actually make it so.
And we do so by learning the power of emotions.
We do so by learning the power of emotions. Yeah, really understanding it. I can highly recommend your children's book, Sia and the Magic Stone, which is a short book I mean, like, I think it's for everybody, not only children and their parents, but also for everyone wanting to educate themselves in the universe, the laws of the universe, in the deep ageless wisdom that's always been here and that is behind every religion on the planet, but explained with science, explained in a way that even children can understand, and thereby also some of us old people that might be have been, I mean, like, people who are born and raised and educated and has done careers in the old paradigm thinking. I mean, I think it's a shortcut to read a children's book.
And the reason why it's perfect is that all these subordinates is also a group of inner wounded children. So they are actually not intellectually mature. So they would benefit from a fairy tale on how this works. This will resonate more deeply with these parts of us. So it is for everyone. Yeah. And our intention was to create a book that would become as popular as The Little Prince. And we're very, we're moving along. It's getting better and better. We sell more and more. So
yeah, there is it's highly praised in Denmark, and I'm hoping that it will become a TV show or in another way broadcasted, and then it's very interesting to see what happens when you launch the English version. Yes. And when it gets out and begins its work around the world.
We have already pitched it to a production company in Denmark, and we'll see what they might think about it. Yeah.
And maybe it's not supposed to be in Danish. Maybe it's supposed to be in English and be an even bigger show. You never know. It's
we are open for collaborations on that if anybody listens in.
Yeah, I will post links to you, how to get in touch with you, how to read about your services and offers, how to get access to the book, and then I'm just going to say thank you very much for.
It was a pleasure talking with you about these themes of so much importance these days. So yeah.
You have any final thoughts you would like to share?
Just maybe re-emphasize that if you need to pick one strategy to go there, be like water. Follow the path of least resistance and most joy, because doing so will shortcut whatever bad programming you might have, and you will find your purpose. You will find your sovereign place by doing that. It's just like, wild river rafting, where you carry the oar, right? You don't want to put them down in the water because you're going to fall and drown, right? So you put them up here and you just use them for balance. So that's how you're going to go there fastest and most fun. Yeah,
that's a great metaphor, because then you just let the river take you wherever it wants to go.
Yes.
And you don't paddle upstream and trying to control anything. You're just letting life have you.
Yeah. Yes. So that was my final words. So have fun doing that.
Thank you.
And you can scream while doing it. It's okay. It's just like the pictures you take in roller coasters, right? You know, that moment.
Yeah. Let's enjoy the ride.
Yes, let's do that. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.